We live in a world that celebrates busyness. Everyone wants to be seen, to be present, to be available every hour, every moment. But the truth is, being constantly available doesn't make you valuable. It often makes you replaceable. Think about it. When you're always saying yes, when you're always accessible, people stop appreciating your time. They start expecting it, and expectations, once formed, rarely come with gratitude. Value is not measured by how much time you give, it's measured by what you bring when you show up. When you offer ideas that move a project forward, when your presence brings clarity in confusion, when your actions inspire others, that's value. And that's what people remember. Being valuable requires discipline. It means you know when to say no so your yes truly means something. It means you guard your focus, your creativity, and your energy because those are your most precious assets. You don't waste them trying to be everywhere, you invest them where they make the greatest difference. Imagine two kinds of people, one who's always available and another who's available when it truly matters. Who do you respect more? The second, because scarcity breeds significance. In professional life, in friendships, in leadership, your value multiplies when your time and attention are given with intention. When people know you won't always be reachable, they start valuing the moments you are. They listen more closely, they engage more deeply, and they remember longer. So stop chasing validation through presence. Start building respect through purpose. Don't aim to be the person everyone can reach anytime. Be the person whose contribution everyone waits for. Be valuable, not available. In the modern age of constant connection, many people mistake being busy for being productive and being present for being valuable. We live in an environment that rewards visibility online, at work, in social circles where people believe that being seen all the time is equal to being significant. The truth is far more subtle. Availability may create an illusion of importance, but it often erodes the depth of our value. The more accessible we make ourselves, the more we risk blending into the background of constant noise. True value comes not from presence, but from purposeful contribution, from showing up with intent, clarity, and substance rather than mere attendance. When we focus on being available to everyone and everything, we scatter our attention across too many tasks, messages, and demands. The result is dilution. Our energy becomes fragmented, our creativity diminished, and our impact less meaningful. People begin to associate our name with responsiveness instead of resourcefulness. They might admire our effort, but they rarely seek our perspective. In contrast, when we choose to act intentionally, contributing only when we can make a genuine difference, our presence becomes associated with quality, depth, and transformation. Think of the professionals who shape their industries. They are not constantly reachable, nor are they present at every meeting or event. Their calendars are often protected by purpose. When they do speak or appear, people listen. Why? Because their absence creates space for anticipation, and their contributions carry the weight of preparation. Their time is not scattered, it's invested. Their value does not stem from their availability, but from the thoughtfulness behind every action they take. In education, in leadership, or in personal life, the same principle applies. A teacher who spends hours talking without engagement is available, but not necessarily valuable. A mentor who chooses to speak less frequently yet delivers insight that changes how someone thinks, that's value. A leader who fills every minute of the day with meetings may appear committed, but a leader who creates time to reflect, strategize, and make decisions that move the organization forward holds greater influence. The difference lies not in the hours they put in, but in the meaning of what they produce within those hours. Being valuable requires self-awareness and courage. It means resisting the social pressure to be constantly visible. It demands the strength to prioritize what truly matters over what simply demands attention. Many people fear that saying no or stepping back will make them irrelevant, yet the opposite is true. When we are selective with our attention, we send a clear message about our priorities. We teach others to value our time and contributions. Over time, people stop seeking us for convenience and start seeking us for substance. The concept of value over presence also ties to the idea of depth over width. A person who spreads themselves thin across many shallow interactions often ends up exhausted, with little meaningful output to show. But someone who invests deeply in fewer areas develops mastery. Their expertise, reliability, and perspective set them apart. That depth of contribution becomes their brand of value. It's not about being everywhere, it's about being exceptional wherever you choose to be. This principle extends beyond work into relationships. In friendships or family, availability may show care, but thoughtful presence builds connection. Listening with full attention once means more than checking in constantly with half interest. People remember moments when they felt truly understood, not moments when you were merely around. The heart values depth, not duration. The digital world makes this lesson even more urgent. Social media, for example, encourages constant availability, instant replies, perpetual posting, and a constant sense of being on. But this environment often leads to burnout and surface-level engagement. When everyone is present all the time, nobody truly stands out. The voices that rise above the noise belong to those who pause, reflect, and contribute with insight. They understand that attention is not endless, it must be earned. To choose value over presence is to redefine what productivity means. It's not about how much you do, but how effectively you do it. It's not about how often you show up, but what changes when you do. Productivity is not a measure of movement, it's a measure of progress. The person who spends hours being available might feel productive, but the person who invests time in creating something lasting is the one who actually builds value. Ultimately, being valuable instead of merely available is about purpose. Every yes must serve a meaningful reason. Every engagement must reflect intentionality. When you operate this way, your time becomes an asset, not a commodity. You stop being a participant in the rush and start becoming a contributor to the change. People will not remember you for how often they saw you. They will remember you for how deeply you impacted them when they did. Boundaries are not walls. They are frameworks that define how we value ourselves and how others value us. In every aspect of life, whether professional, academic, or personal, boundaries act as invisible lines that communicate self-respect, priorities, and purpose. When people lack boundaries, they become available to everyone and everything, leaving little room for what truly matters. Their time, energy, and mental space are consumed by external demands. In contrast, individuals who set clear boundaries project strength, confidence, and focus. They teach others how to treat them, not by demanding respect, but by modeling it through their actions. Boundaries are a reflection of self-awareness. They reveal how well someone understands their limits and what they stand for. Without them, even the most talented individuals risk becoming overwhelmed, underappreciated, and directionless. The ability to say no is not a rejection of others, it's an affirmation of one's values. When people say no to distractions, unnecessary meetings, or energy-draining interactions, they make space for meaningful growth. In a world that glorifies saying yes, boundaries become a quiet declaration of independence. In professional settings, the absence of boundaries often leads to burnout. Employees who constantly respond to messages after work hours or agree to every request from superiors may appear dedicated, but they often sacrifice their mental health and creativity in the process. Over time, this constant availability doesn't earn respect. It breeds expectation. People begin to assume that the individual will always comply, and their effort becomes undervalued. On the other hand, professionals who set clear boundaries by prioritizing their workload, defining working hours, and maintaining a healthy separation between personal and professional life earn long-term respect. Their decisions show discipline and integrity. They become known not for being accessible, but for being dependable. Boundaries also shape leadership. Great leaders are not those who are available every second, but those who allocate their time intentionally. They understand that leadership requires vision and reflection, both of which need mental space. When leaders fail to set boundaries, they risk becoming managers of chaos rather than architects of growth. A leader who is always responding to every email, message, or issue loses time to think strategically. By setting boundaries such as scheduling deep work periods, delegating responsibilities, or limiting reactive decision making, they lead with clarity and effectiveness. Their boundaries become a model for their teams, teaching others that time is not infinite and that focus must be earned through discipline. In personal relationships, boundaries are equally vital. They define emotional balance and mutual respect. Being available to friends, family, or partners at all times might seem caring, but it often leads to emotional exhaustion. Without boundaries, one person may give endlessly while the other becomes dependent or entitled. Healthy boundaries, however, encourage balance. They teach both sides to appreciate each other's individuality and time. A friend who says, "I can't talk right now, but I'll call you tomorrow," is not avoiding connection, they're protecting their energy so that when they do connect, they're fully present. Boundaries turn relationships from dependency into harmony. Psychologically, boundaries preserve self-worth. When people stretch themselves beyond their limits to please others, they often experience guilt, resentment, and fatigue. They begin to lose their sense of identity as their priorities blur under the weight of external expectations. Setting boundaries restores personal power. It reminds the individual that their time and energy are finite resources to be managed wisely. This realization builds inner confidence, the understanding that saying no doesn't make one selfish, it makes one responsible. Boundaries also enhance productivity and creativity. Constant availability interrupts deep work and focus. Every distraction, a message, a request, or an unplanned conversation pulls attention away from meaningful tasks. By establishing boundaries around time and environment, people create conditions for flow, the mental state where high-quality work happens. Writers, artists, scientists, and thinkers often protect their creative spaces fiercely. They understand that their best ideas come not from constant connection, but from solitude and concentration. Their boundaries are not barriers, they are enablers of brilliance. In the digital world, boundaries are more important than ever. The constant influx of notifications, emails, and social media updates blurs the line between work and rest. People often feel guilty for stepping away from their screens, fearing they'll miss out or appear uncommitted. Digital boundaries such as designated offline hours or focused work sessions restore mental clarity. They prevent technology from dictating priorities and allow individuals to reclaim ownership of their attention. In doing so, people regain control of one of their most valuable assets, focus. Boundaries also nurture emotional intelligence. When people learn to define their limits clearly and communicate them respectfully, they develop empathy not only for themselves, but for others. They understand that just as they need space and respect, others do too. This awareness strengthens collaboration, trust, and communication. Teams that respect individual boundaries often work more effectively because their members feel valued and secure. Ultimately, boundaries do not restrict connection or opportunity, they enhance them. They turn every yes into something intentional, meaningful, and impactful. When people operate with boundaries, their choices carry weight, and their actions align with purpose. They no longer chase validation through overcommitment. Instead, they command respect through self-control. Boundaries define worth not by exclusion, but by intention. They are the lines that protect value from being diluted by endless availability. Purposeful contribution is the art of offering value with intention rather than action for its own sake. In a culture that glorifies constant activity, many people equate busyness with importance. They rush to fill their schedules, answer every message, and participate in every opportunity, believing that presence alone equals contribution. Yet, true contribution comes not from the volume of what we do, but from the clarity behind why we do it. It is the difference between working hard and working meaningfully. Purposeful contribution turns effort into impact by aligning action with intention. Every individual possesses unique skills, perspectives, and experiences that can serve as sources of value. But these resources only create impact when directed toward a clear purpose. Without purpose, even great effort can become noise movement without progress. When people contribute intentionally, they channel their strengths toward meaningful outcomes. They don't just add more to the conversation, they elevate it. Their actions have a direction, and their presence carries weight because it serves something larger than themselves. In workplaces, purposeful contribution transforms teams. Employees who work with intention understand not just their tasks, but the reason behind them. They connect their roles to a bigger vision, which gives their work meaning. Such individuals don't simply complete assignments. They innovate, question, and refine processes because they care about the outcome. When contribution is purposeful, motivation becomes intrinsic. People act not for recognition or reward, but for the fulfillment that comes from meaningful achievement. This kind of engagement is what drives long-term excellence and leadership. Leaders who embody purposeful contribution influence others not through authority, but through example. They don't just tell people what to do, they show why it matters. Their decisions reflect alignment between words and actions, inspiring trust. When leaders contribute with purpose, they shift focus from performance metrics to shared vision. Their energy creates a ripple effect, encouraging others to work with meaning instead of obligation. In such environments, productivity becomes more than output, it becomes a manifestation of collective purpose. Purposeful contribution also demands awareness, the ability to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Many people spend their time responding to immediate demands, rarely pausing to evaluate whether their actions align with their values. Purposeful individuals operate differently. They prioritize strategically, ensuring their time and energy serve goals that truly matter. This mindset prevents burnout and fosters a sense of fulfillment. They understand that not every opportunity deserves attention, and not every request requires participation. By contributing where they can make a genuine difference, they amplify their impact and preserve their focus. In education and learning, purposeful contribution deepens understanding. Students who learn with the intent to apply knowledge meaningfully develop critical thinking and curiosity. They move beyond memorization to exploration. Their contributions in class or discussion reflect thought, not repetition. Similarly, educators who teach with purpose focus less on covering material and more on inspiring transformation. They create environments where learning becomes an act of contribution to knowledge, to self, growth, and to the collective curiosity of the classroom. Purposeful contribution extends to relationships as well. In friendships, partnerships, and communities, it is not the number of interactions that defines connection, but the depth of them. A thoughtful conversation that uplifts, supports, or enlightens holds more value than countless exchanges of small talk. When people engage intentionally offering time, empathy, or guidance where it's genuinely needed, they strengthen bonds rooted in authenticity. Purpose gives relationships direction and depth. It transforms interaction into impact. Creativity thrives under purpose. Artists, writers, and innovators who create with intent produce work that resonates beyond aesthetics or novelty. Their creations communicate ideas, provoke thought, and inspire change. Purpose fuels persistence because it provides meaning even in struggle. When challenges arise, people guided by purpose endure, knowing that their contribution serves something beyond themselves. Purpose becomes the compass that turns adversity into growth. In community and social impact, purposeful contribution is the foundation of meaningful change. People who volunteer or advocate with clear intent create sustainable outcomes. They understand the needs they serve and approach them with empathy and strategy, not impulse. Purpose ensures that efforts are not wasted on symbolic gestures but directed toward real transformation. It shifts contribution from performance to service, from self-promotion to collective betterment. Purposeful contribution also requires reflection. People must regularly pause to ask, "Why am I doing this? What difference does it make?" This self-questioning aligns action with intention. It prevents the drift into routine and keeps one's work connected to their values. Reflection transforms activity into awareness, ensuring that each effort contributes to growth, personal or communal. Technology has made contribution easier, but not necessarily more meaningful. Anyone can post, share, or comment, but purposeful digital contribution stands out through substance and sincerity. Whether through writing, design, or thought, individuals who use digital platforms to inform, educate, or inspire, rather than merely exist online, create value that lasts. Their voices rise above the noise because they carry intention, not impulse. Purposeful contribution is also rooted in empathy. When people contribute with awareness of others' needs and perspectives, their impact multiplies. They stop measuring success by how much they've done and start assessing it by how much they've improved or inspired. Empathy adds context to purpose. It gives contribution human depth. Every purposeful act, no matter how small, contributes to a larger ecosystem of progress. A teacher shaping minds, a nurse offering care, a writer sharing truth, all are examples of how purposeful contribution transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary influence. The essence lies not in being busy, but in being intentional. Purposeful contribution teaches that value is not about the number of tasks we complete, but about the meaning we leave behind in the lives we touch and the systems we improve. Scarcity creates value because it establishes distinction. What is rare is appreciated, what is constant becomes invisible. This principle applies not only to materials or markets, but also to human presence, time, and attention. When people make themselves constantly available, they lose the element of anticipation that magnifies worth. The human mind is wired to assign higher value to things that are limited or exclusive. When something is not always accessible, people become more attentive, more grateful, and more deliberate in how they engage with it. In contrast, when something is abundant, it is often taken for granted not because it lacks value, but because it lacks scarcity. The power of scarcity lies in the balance between presence and absence. Being selectively available makes interactions intentional. It shifts perception from quantity to quality. In professional life, this is visible in how we view expertise. A consultant who is always free to meet conveys less authority than one whose schedule is partially occupied. The same applies to teachers, mentors, or leaders. When their time is respected and limited, their insight gains more importance. People listen more closely to those they know they won't always have access to. Scarcity demands attention, it elevates presence. In relationships, scarcity nurtures appreciation. When someone is always present, their presence becomes routine. But when space exists between interactions, it allows people to reflect, to miss, and to value. Moments of distance can strengthen connection because they make presence meaningful again. A conversation after time apart feels richer. A reunion after absence feels deeper. Scarcity is not about withdrawal. It is about restoring the emotional balance between giving and being valued. Scarcity also enhances focus. When individuals treat their time as a scarce resource, they become more selective in how they spend it. They prioritize meaningful work over busy work, essential relationships over superficial connections. This discipline fosters clarity. By protecting their time, they amplify the value of their output. A person who says yes to fewer things but delivers excellence in those few areas becomes indispensable. The scarcity of their commitment signals that their involvement carries weight and intention. In leadership, scarcity shapes perception of authority. Leaders who attend every discussion, reply instantly to every message, and involve themselves in every decision may appear accessible but risk diluting their influence. True leadership requires selective engagement, choosing moments that demand vision, guidance, or correction. When a leader speaks rarely but with depth, their words carry gravity. Scarcity gives their voice power because it signals thought and purpose. The less frequent their interventions, the more attention they command when they occur. Economically, scarcity is a universal principle of value. Gold, art, and innovation derive worth from rarity and uniqueness. The same applies to human talent. Specialized expertise is scarce, and therefore it is valued more than general ability. When people cultivate unique skills instead of blending into the crowd, they create professional scarcity. Their knowledge, creativity, or craftsmanship becomes something not easily replaced. This form of scarcity translates directly into demand and respect. By mastering what few understand, individuals position themselves as valuable assets in any environment. The power of scarcity extends to communication. Constant communication weakens message impact. When people speak incessantly, their words lose emphasis. However, when someone speaks less but with clarity and conviction, their voice gains authority. Scarcity in words encourages listening. It also demonstrates confidence, the confidence to allow silence to speak as powerfully as speech. Silence itself can be a form of scarcity. It creates anticipation and reflection. Creativity thrives under scarcity. Limited resources or constraints often drive innovation because they force people to think differently. History's greatest inventions and works of art often emerged not from abundance, but from necessity. Scarcity sharpens problem solving, fuels imagination, and reveals resourcefulness. It removes complacency by making individuals aware that every decision, every effort, and every moment matters. When something cannot be wasted, it is used wisely. This discipline transforms limitation into leverage. Scarcity also influences personal growth. When people limit their exposure to constant stimulation, social media, entertainment, or external validation, they regain control of their attention. Their focus becomes scarce and therefore precious. This scarcity of attention allows for deeper thought, stronger concentration, and greater creativity. By choosing to disconnect periodically, individuals create mental space for reflection. They become more intentional in how they engage with the world. Their energy is no longer scattered across distractions, but concentrated on purpose. In emotional life, scarcity teaches gratitude. When experiences or people are not always available, appreciation grows. Time apart from loved ones, moments of solitude, or the temporary absence of comfort remind individuals of the value of connection, presence, and security. This psychological response reinforces gratitude because it contrasts abundance with loss. The absence makes the return more meaningful. Scarcity also refines decision-making. When time and opportunities are perceived as limited, people choose more carefully. They analyze consequences and align actions with priorities. This selective behavior leads to more strategic living. The awareness of scarcity removes the illusion of endless time or limitless chances. It pushes individuals to act decisively and live intentionally. Each choice gains weight, and each moment carries more purpose. In social and professional identity, scarcity builds reputation. When someone avoids overexposure, attending fewer events, speaking only when necessary, sharing ideas selectively, their image becomes one of thoughtfulness and restraint. People begin to associate their presence with substance. Overexposure, in contrast, creates fatigue. Scarcity creates curiosity. A person who is not always seen becomes someone people look forward to seeing. Scarcity, therefore, is not about absence, but about presence that matters. It teaches that value multiplies when something is not constantly available. By managing time, energy, and attention as scarce resources, people create a sense of importance around their contributions. When every engagement, word, or appearance is intentional, it transforms into something valuable. The less frequently something is offered, the more significance it holds, and in that significance lies true influence.